Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
Going to Wrigley Field was a huge, unforgettable deal that impacted my life.
Well, I think the Cubs winning based upon the gap was one of the biggest championships that have happened in any American sport in a really long time.
The first day that they introduced me, I said, baseball matters on the north side of Chicago. It's one of the, I love baseball and I love fan bases where it's important.
Well, I always hated the idea of the Cubs as lovable losers because I don't think there's anything lovable about putting an inferior product in front of baseball fans.
It would be the highlight of my career to see that happen and to get a chance to call it. And it didn't disappoint.
I auditioned for the new kid. His name was Billy Crystal. I don't know whatever happened. But I'm on the Chad and Ryan show.
Welcome to Friendly Confines, Extra Innings with Chad Gordon and Ryan Lieber.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's good to be back. We had a little bit of some time off. We'll talk about that shortly. But Chad, nice to see you.
Yeah.
I wish it was under better circumstances right now as we got to get creative these next few weeks.
I don't think so. I think this is as newsworthy as it gets. We've never been a show about what's happening right now in the field. They're playing the Reds right now. But there's a lot to cover. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot about the future of the Cubs. I mean, if you just jumped into this team in 15 and 16, you're probably not watching us now. This show's for the diehards. And there is no truth to the rumor that we've been off the last 2 weeks because the Cubs traded our rights for a bag of chips.
They certainly did. Hopefully they got some decent prospects in return. Just real quick, I was on the IL the last couple of weeks. I had some surgery. I had a medical procedure. For those of you that may have had their gallbladder out, well, you can count me amongst those now that is gallbladder free. Feeling good, feeling okay. Great surgeon, easy surgery. Don't recommend it if you don't need it, but nonetheless, I'm here to tell the tale, and I feel much better.
I'm glad you're okay, but are you going to plug the surgeon? Did you get like a discount if you plug this on the show?
I mean, listen, if you're in South Florida in West Palm Beach and you want to
go see your gallbladder,
want your gallbladder out or any sort of oncologic procedure that she also does. Dr. Casey Cohen does it robotically with the Da Vinci robot. Chad, you're familiar with the Da Vinci too?
Yes.
From your real job that you do, during the week. So she was tremendous, absolutely amazing, and very skilled. So
you didn't answer the question. Did you get like a discount if you promised to plug her on our show? Because you just plugged her twice.
I don't get a discount, but I'll be completely honest. For those who may not know, I work in the healthcare industry, and I had the surgery at one of my hospitals. And obviously, with my insurance, I do get a major discount if I have a procedure at one of my hospitals. That is the benefit of working in the healthcare industry when you work for a hospital chain. So you kind of like maneuver the system, and I was able to kind of get VIP access and attention when I got.
I don't know if you saw this, but one of our viewers, Santiago Cordova, just asked, I hope you can still drink. Can you still have a drink?
So believe it or not, the gallbladder has nothing over alcohol. So it literally has never played a role in that. What it does is it breaks down fat in your body when you eat. But as far as alcohol goes, the gallbladder does not serve any purpose with that. The liver is all about alcohol, right. If you know, as we always talk about your liver, Chad, when you have a weekend out of drinking, it's your liver that you have to take care of.
Well, that's good news. But what basically me and Santiago and the others are now thinking, we still have no use for our gallbladder. But I'm glad you're good. I'm glad you're on the mend. It was good to have you back on that on our regular podcast, the audio version on Wednesday of last week, and looking forward to record with you this week. But what do you think, Ron? Should we get started? Some big news and some surprising news. I'm going to kick it off if that's okay.
Go ahead.
10th inning here in the Friendly Confines Extra Innings edition. Color me shocked, because on our podcast last week, we were thinking, is this a swan song for Jake Arietta, who is having the worst statistical season for any starter in Cubs history in 145 years, over 20 games started, statistically the worst season. And now here you go, the San Diego Padres, a team that were on many magazine covers for previews, and many people anointed them as a bona fide, surefire, probably World Series team, probably a champion with their core. They went out and got Jake Arrieta today. They signed him because they have so many issues at pitching. They did not do much on the trade deadline. But right now, are you shocked as I am? Because I did not see this coming when the rumbling started in the last few hours.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that the Padres kind of looked at the situation and said they clearly saw something in Jake Arrieta where they felt like they could, possibly make him a reclamation project for the past, the next couple of months. Sometimes having a veteran guy on your staff who is a former Cy Young Award winner, regardless of maybe how bad he's been pitching, is a better option than bringing somebody up from your farm system. And that's how the Padres kind of look at it. Bringing in a guy who has playoff experience, has won a World Series, has won a Cy Young. It's just kind of ridiculous how cyclical this has been, Chad. Obviously, the Cubs trade Hugh Darvish to the Padres. They sign Jake Arrieta to take Hugh Darvish's place. Then DFA Jake Arrieta, who then goes to the San Diego Padres to replace Yu Darvish, who is injured for the San Diego Padres. So kind of funny how that works. Now, Chad, I'm going to throw this back at you because this is kind of the irony in all of this. You live in San Diego. You have Yu Darvish, Victor Caratini, and now Jake Arrieta playing for the Padres. Does this give you any sort of inkling to be like, all right, hey, I could get into this a little bit and maybe watch Jake pitch for the Padres now?
Well, I do. I split time. I spend most of my time in San Diego. I have my place in Chicago. But no, I am not ever going to put on a Padre hat, even though they're one of the coolest hats you'll ever have. The hat is like where the fan wear stays. You don't put on other people's hat. I know you disagree. And I won't put on a Slam Diego shirt, which is, again, one of the cooler shirts. I think this is a pretty cool shirt. One of the relics of the 80s.
Like that.
The fight in the neighborhood trying to keep the lights out of there. Well, here's the thing. I've already been to 4 Padre games. I'll probably be to 3 or 4. I hope to catch in some playoff games as well. I like baseball. I will go watch. I'm still going to sport a Cubs hat. It's something a little bit more, less obvious. But to go back to Jake Arrieta, it's shocking to me because you said, yeah, he's got the bona fides, but Satchel Paige has the bona fides. They're not going to, the Padres aren't going to dig him up to have him trot out there. This is not the Jake Arrieta of previous seasons. This is not the Jake Arrieta that commanded $25 million by the Phillies even last year, that contract that he came off. This is the Jake Arrieta that can't even get through the 3rd or 4th inning for the Chicago Cubs. I polled a lot of my Padre fan friends, a lot of new season ticket holders, because there's a lot of excitement around Petco Park and this team and this young core who you feel like has a good future. This organization's invested in this team, and they don't see this as a situation where, the Messiah is coming in to shut things down and take over an A spot. They need somebody to eat innings, and Jake Arrieta is the only one out there. Keep in mind, there is no trade deadline. There is no, this is the only way to do it. Somebody have to be DFA'd, and the other team, the Cubs in this, for instance, would pay the majority of it, and then the team that picks them up has to pay a prorated amount of the minimum salary. So the Padres are taking, I think, and I could be wrong here, $180,000 flyer on Jake Arrieta. He's starting Wednesday in Colorado, and I'm telling you, I've seen 2 Jake Arrieta starts in person this year in the games I've seen. Everything that was hit off of Jake Arrieta was hit hard. And so I don't have high hopes that he's going to do much of anything in that thin air in Colorado. And I am, again, surprised. But if there's nobody out there and you're depleted in your farm team and all of your pitching has been really struggling, which has a lot of Padre fans concerned, Jake Arrieta is your only hope right now. Let's see how he does on Wednesday. I have no hope.
This reminds me a little bit, sorry to use a player from so long ago, but when Steve Carlton, who is one of the greatest left-handed pitchers of all time, if you remember, Chad, he got released from the Phillies. Then I think he played for the White Sox, actually. Then he went to the Giants, the Indians, the Twins. He played for like 5 teams in 2 seasons. I saw that from a lot of like aging hurlers. This is kind of similar to a guy who's like hanging on. You know, Greg Maddux, he went to the Dodgers and the Padres at the end of his career. You kind of see that a lot of times from players who are, you know, pitchers just trying to hang on. So this is a similar situation. And let's see how it plays out. If Jake Arrieta can give the Padres 3 quality starts or whatever the case may be, it might be worth it for them, because in the playoffs, he's not going to be relied on in the postseason. I think this is more just trying to get by when these guys are healthy. So, all right, with that, let's move on to the 11th inning, Chad. And Baseball America came out with their mid-season farm system rankings. And if you remember, Chad, in the beginning of the year, the Cubs were ranked around 26, 27. And now with all the trades that they made, they moved up 17 spots to 17th. Now, depending on how you feel, you could look at this and go, man, that's all we're at is 17th after all the trades we made for these prospects, and we got rid of all the best, you know, players we've potentially had in franchise history. Or, you know, are you going to be in a situation where you basically are better?
So Ryan, I have to. Oh, sorry, Ryan. I have to share with you. Your audio was cutting out there, and Aldo, if you can come on screen, was it cutting out for you as well? We're going to dig right into it, but was that on my end, Aldo, or was that on yours as well?
For the last 30 seconds, Ryan's audio cut out a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Ryan. So I don't know.
Can you hear me better now?
Connection. We're going to continue on with the show, but basically, you know, Ryan, you just shared, after all the flurries of trades we were made, after all the new guys we got, how is Baseball America still saying this isn't even a top half of Major League Baseball? And I've got the easy answer for you, because the guys that the Cubs picked up are not the superstars of today. The Baseball America rankings are about guys that are ready to go. And the Cubs have a couple guys that came up, but keep in mind, I mean, Nico, if he was still in the minors, would be definitely somewhere in the top half of the top 50 rankings. The Cubs only have one player in the top 100, and that's Brendan Davis. He's the one guy that Baseball America thinks he's ready to go in the top 100. Braylon Marquez, Miguel Amaya, those guys have been hurt all year, and that has hurt the Cubs ranking. So don't be alarmed by this, Cubs fans, because I think the ones that are alarmed on Twitter right now aren't really thinking about what is the methodology of Baseball America's ranking. So right now, you've got a situation where the Cubs really don't have a lot of Major League ready talent that has proven it in this current season, and that's what Baseball America really looks like. Let's check your audio, Ryan. Let me know what you think.
All right. So I personally feel like, listen, when you can go from 27 to 17, you're rising 10 spots. And as you said, Chad, let's see how these draft picks, you know, pan out. We don't really know the extent of how good or bad they're going to be. Let's see what happens when they have a high draft pick after, you know, this season, and who they are able to bring in. And there are going to be more trades on the horizon in the offseason potentially. So eventually, maybe they do creep into the top 10 and get to that, that spot where they're going to be able to look even better than how they are looking right now. I will say this, that, you know, prospects and draft picks mean so much more now in baseball than they ever did even, 10, 15 years ago. You look at the NBA, you look at the NFL, how those draft picks are so crucial and so key now to building a franchise. Baseball for a long time didn't really follow that, model. Now draft picks are at a premium, and just as much as they are in the NFL and the NBA. So these are things that people are really hyper looking at than they, ever did before. And so I'm hoping that some of the guys that they traded for when they obviously made all these deals for, the Bryants and the Baez's and the Rizzos and the Kimbrels are ultimately going to grow, develop, and get it even better. And that will increase the ranking. So we'll have to see. Listen, they always say prospects are suspect. And until you can see what they can ultimately do at a high level for a long period of time, you don't know what you're getting. So I don't want to put too much stock into it, even though I think a lot of people read a lot into it. At the end of the day, I think you just got to sit there and go, trust the process, see what happens. It's just going to take time.
Yeah, I'm not going to trust the process. A lot of these guys we picked up, who the heck knows? They're flyers. we're not going to know if any of those kids from the Hugh
You have
Darvish
no
trade
choice
are
but
going
to
to
trust
be
the process.
Yeah,
That's the issue.
we're not going to know for 3-4 years, even if the Hugh Darvish guys have any role here. So let's move on to the very next inning, which I believe is the 13th inning, or the 12th inning, rather. I can't count. I always mess that up. And Rhino, we're in the midst of history again. It's not the worst ever, but it is the first time ever the Cubs have had 2 11-game losing streaks, and we're in it right now. I keep watching the score. The Cubs are playing the Reds right now. My assumption, more people are watching this than really glued to that Reds game. What do you think about this 11-game losing streak? Does it matter? Because obviously it's a lot less shocking than the losing streak when all the core guys were a part of this team. Yeah. But are you perplexed or plussed by this at all, or do you want to see them start going on an 11-game winning streak?
It doesn't matter to me, Chad. I was at the game on Saturday, as you know. I was in Miami watching the Marlins-Cubs game. They actually took the lead in the 8th inning, and in the 7th inning, they were up 4-3 at one point, only to lose 5-4 with 3 straight errors by Alcantara. But it doesn't matter at this point. If they could lose every game the rest of the year, I think more fans want to tank. They want to see a high draft pick. They want to see this team with the worst record. They want to be able to see this team compete with the Orioles as the worst team in baseball and the Diamondbacks. So it really is irrelevant what games they win and what games they lose, because if you're rooting for this team to get a high draft pick, then you want them to be as bad as possible. As far as I'm concerned, Chad, this season ended the day that they traded. July 31st was the day the season ended. All these guys that we're seeing now, we've talked about it. These are just placeholders for what could potentially happen in the offseason, and seeing that, we're going to be bringing in new players, hopefully, and that we're going to be developing young guys that are in the farm system. So the 11-game losing streak doesn't bother me at all. Keep losing, and we'll just see you next year. What about you?
This is the time, and I've been sharing this. This is the time to see some young guys who we may never see again, ever see again. And Frank Swindell, who has been the Cubs Player of the Week the last 2 weeks, he's one of those guys you're like, probably never see him again, but he really wants to be here, and he's actually leading the way. And by the way, good old Frank the Tank Swindell, the franchise, has more home runs than Javi, Rizzo, and Bryant combined since the trade. Here's a guy that wants to be out there and is doing his best. We also talked about Rafael Ortega. Here's a guy that wants to be the starting center fielder and the leadoff guy next year. He wants to be there. For the most part, you're going to see a lot of guys and storylines that are just going to come and go, and you're not going to see them next year. But if there's a chance that Frank Swindell is the real deal, and Patrick Wisdom is a 45 home run guy, and Rafael Ortega is your leadoff guy and playing center field, and the Cubs have $40 million committed to next year, they have a lot of room and just a couple positions to really worry about what they're going to do. If you're going to bring in Madrigal, if you're going to let Nico take the role at second or at shortstop, rather, you're kind of stuck with Jay Hay. Still would like to see some sort of team-friendly jettison, but that isn't going to happen. And you've got Willie at catcher. You have the ability to bring in some superstars or make some moves with some of these guys. I want to see at this point, I want to see this team lose as much as possible. I want to see them go 1-9 on every 10-game streak, not because I love tanking. It's because these are the rules right now. And if they stay on pace with what they're doing right now, they likely won't get into the top 3 of picks, but they absolutely can be a number 4 or number 5 pick. And if you look historically at the number 4 and the number 5 picks in Major League Baseball the last decade, some really big names jump out at you. So I'm all for it. This Cubs season is all about the future. And again, it's about going back to Wrigley and enjoying Wrigley Field for what it is. And if you want to tune into the game, or you got other better things to do, then let the marquee network's ratings suffer. But 17's the record. Let's go for 12 tonight and push on through and be talking about a 23-game losing streak. And then let's see if we can have a number 1 or a number 2 pick. I'd be down.
I'd love to know who the number 1 pick is so we can come up with like a suck for or tank for blank, whoever that may be. All right, so we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to chat about this new Cubs Hall of Fame that's potentially being put together by the organization. Plus, we're going to talk about our guest from this week. We got to chat with Melanie Newman of the Baltimore Orioles. That was an interview that Chad and I had been working on for months. It was a must-listen-to interview. We'll get into that, plus previewing next week's episode. So we're going to pay some bills. We'll be right back here on the extra innings edition of the Friendly Confines.
was a sore loser, man. For instance, I played softball for 40-some years. I was one of the top players in my 20s and 30s. I won the Hamlet Park tournament on a thing called the Blackjacks. We won Clarendon. I was an all-star type of pitcher. I'm in the Hall of Fame. But you know what? I didn't have as much fun as I should have. Because if you're really geared in on winning only, you're going to come across as ungracious at times, as a sore loser. But I'll never forget, I'm at the Michael Jordan fantasy camp, so Jordan comes down to gamble. I end up sitting next to him. Jordan's betting $3,000 a hand, I'm betting $300. He's blaming me for taking a hit because I'm sitting in front of him. Why'd you take that hit? Well, because I'm trying to win. When we made the correct calls and he would lose, he'd pound his fist. He'd act like an idiot. Really, like a guy with his last dollar. Then it hit me. That's why he's great. He doesn't give a shit what people's reaction is to his behavior at certain times. So that's the type of mentality I had.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Ryan Lieber and Chad Gordon here on the extra innings edition of the Friendly Confines. Of course, want to make sure that you know, as you saw the barroom swag, go to deepdish.com/barroom. You can get swag and merch from the Friendly Confines podcast, among all the other podcasts here on the Barroom Network, and Aldo Gandia, who gives us the opportunity to have this show each and every week. We appreciate him, and we appreciate everything that he does. Now, as far as our show is concerned, don't forget to go to our website, theconfines.com. You can subscribe to our podcast audio version of the Friendly Confines, get into all our past episodes, all the interviews that we've done with past guests as well. We do the full-length interviews there. So go to where podcasts are available on your iPhone or computer, and you can check that out as well. We had a great show this week. We had Melanie Newman as our guest from the Baltimore Orioles. You may remember, Chad, and we're going to talk about her shortly. She was part of the all-first female broadcast of a baseball game. She was the play-by-play announcer. I'm a big fan of her. She did an excellent, excellent job. We'll get into that as well as we begin the 13th inning, Chad. And there's some big news that's kind of under the radar a little bit, and I credit you for finding this. There's some chatter that the Cubs are going to have a Cubs Hall of Fame. It makes sense. We have other teams in baseball that have their own sort of Hall of Fame. Now, we know the obvious people that would be in the Hall of Fame, Chad, the Hall of Famers, the actual Hall of Famers, the Banks, the Santos, the Billy Williams, Ryan Sandberg, Fergie Jenkins types, Andre Dawson. But here's the question I have for you. Who do you put in there that's not in Cooperstown that you would include in this bunch of a Cubs Hall of Fame? I'll let you start. Go ahead.
Yeah, and people were asking, talking on Twitter, like, kind of weird, you're doing that. Do they not understand what's going on right now? There's going to be a documentary about preserving the landmark, and they're going to have a plaque that's going to be dedicated on Thursday. I was invited as a season ticket holder. I'm not going to make it Wednesday or Thursday. And it's going to be one plaque to preserve it as a national landmark, which is a big deal. And then it's going to be something also honoring the Ricketts family for preserving the national landmark. So they're going to get the first honor. But this Hall of Fame, people have asked, like, that's kind of, where are you doing this now? They need something to draw people to the park. They need something, especially the last, couple months, to get people in, the turnstiles working. So to answer your question, I see it, probably it'll mirror a lot of like what we see if you've gotten down there. Maybe you haven't, Rhino, underneath the bleachers. They've got like some displays and things, everything like Tinkers to Evers to Chance. They've got some things on Mordecai Brown. I think this is a really good opportunity. So those are a couple names, but I think it's a really good opportunity to honor that 1969 team while there's still some guys there, and do more of a team honoring, because that'll bring some guys out there. The 1984 team as well. Not a lot of Mordecai fan jerseys out there. I like that. Yeah, Mark Grace is obviously one of the greatest all-time Cubs Major League Baseball hitter in the 90s. So good call out, Mr. Inglewood. I think this is something that sets up very well if the Cubs wanted to finally get some sort of apology or whatever they need to make Sammy Sosa make his way back, because that could be something as well. Even though a lot of people are very divided on him, that I promise you are cheering their heads off for years for him, but against him right now because he dared to do what so many others were doing. But Sammy could be a guy in there. I think Kerry Wood would definitely have a role to play. I could name a lot of guys. You didn't name Maddox. I hope he's not in there. I keep saying it should be there as the worst decision by the Tribune company, to let him run away and do what he did for the Braves. But I think what I'm excited about is, my hope is I'll get to see some things that are in the archives that we don't have access to. So I'll get to see some things that are important to me, important to Cubs fans. But if people are questioning why they're going to break ground on a sports book, you aren't looking at what's going on in the world, and the Cubs are leading the way. And if they're concerned like why they're making a move about a Hall of Fame, they are going to need some people showing up there year round, and also for these next 2 months. And this could be a nice opportunity. I don't think it's going to break ground in terms of they're going to do anything, but maybe we'll get to see a sneak peek. My big question for this, and I want to get your answer about who you think should be in, if I miss some people, but where's this going to go? Because all of the real estate around Wrigley, I mean, you've got that brick building right there that's between, by the Cubs store and then right on the side there on the triangle piece. That's not very big. That's about the size of a double wide trailer. So I'm wondering where they're going to go. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, how they do it. Will it be something like Monument Park that they have at Yankee Stadium? But I'm excited. As a Cubs fan, I'm stoked to see it.
I'm stoked to see it too. And we had a couple of people that asked Santiago and Mr. Edgewood. Sean Dunston, maybe. Lee Elia, I believe, would be in the Les Grobstein Hall of Fame. I think Aldo understands that inside joke that I just made, Chad. But anyway, who do I think should be in there? I mean, you hit on the head. Sosa. I think that Aramis Ramirez is a guy I would put in there. You mentioned Kerry Wood. How about guys like Don Zimmer and Jim Fry, Dallas Green?
Are you just naming people that you just think of at times? Aramis, what? Tell me his bona fides. I can do a debate on Aramis. Really?
You don't think Aramis Ramirez would belong in a Cubs Hall of Fame?
No. He wouldn't be in the top. He wouldn't be in the top 100.
I think Derek Lee would belong in there. I think you put someone like Hack Wilson is in there. I think somebody like Rick Russell could be in there.
Yeah.
Lee Smith, you're going to put in there.
Lee Smith is definitely in there.
Yeah. I mean, these are just, like off the top of my head. I'm just trying to think of like who you would put in there. And like I said, some of these managers that I mentioned, like the Zimmers and the Jim Frys and the Dallas Greens, guys that, played major roles in obviously the Cubs winning, multiple division titles all those years. I mean, I think there's a great opportunity for a lot of, so Santiago for his night prowess, of course. Yeah. Why not? It can be all encompassing. But regardless, teams like the Cardinals have one. I think it would be just the Yankees obviously have one. I think it would just make a lot of sense to for the Cubs to put one together as well, and to dedicate it for all the players, as you mentioned, that have been there over the years and deserve an opportunity to be in there.
I can guarantee you the Ricketts have probably ran the numbers and figured out a way to monetize this, and that's probably the main reason they're pulling the trigger on this. But yeah, I think they're looking into next year, and they realize if they aren't competitive, they need something to bring people out to Wrigley, because it's just going to get bleak if they don't start out strong next year or make a big, huge push in the free agency. So let's move on to the next inning, and the 14th inning. I'll let you set this up in just a second, but what one of the things we'd love to do on the podcast, and you mentioned earlier, for those that are just viewers, because we know there's distinct just viewers and then there's also listeners. The podcast is a completely different piece. And our podcast, one of the things we really pride ourselves on is we get the greatest guests, period. I mean, we've had Joe Buck on there. We've had George Will, columnist, and I think our second Pulitzer Prize winner. We've had, guys like Ryan Dempster. We've had so many fantastic people, if a who's who of national broadcasters, and then anybody and everybody that covers Chicago sports. And Melanie Newman was one, Ryan, that we were pretty excited about getting, because one of the things we've been really focused on is a lot of different voices and diversity in the people that we get. And so we're always going after leaders, no matter the race, creed, or color, or the gender. And Melanie is one of these front runners in all the work she's doing with Baltimore. It was really a pleasure for you. What did you take away from her interview as you set her interview clip?
Well, and I follow her on social media, and she's just such a classy, individual when it comes to the way that she, puts herself out there on social media, and her takes are great, and she's very knowledgeable and really just has a great understanding of the game and kind of the importance of putting it out there. I hate to, listen, there are a lot of women that deserve opportunities in sports. And Melanie is not somebody that wants to put herself in the limelight. She's one of those people that wants to put her work in front of what she is. She does not want to be considered a publicity stunt, nor is she. And I think that there's a lot of people that, of course, if they see a woman broadcasting a game or doing analysis of a game, it's almost like they get offended because they feel like that they don't know as much as a guy does, or they didn't play the sport, even though we know 90% of the broadcasters, Chad, didn't play baseball or football or basketball. Yet arguably the best analyst in basketball right now is Doris Burke, who did play college basketball, and she is fantastic, and obviously a woman. So it's great to see, as you mentioned, the diversity. And now we have a place where women are not just being pigeonholed as a sideline reporter. They can be analysts like Jessica Mendoza. They can be play-by-play announcers like, Melanie Newman. And for a long time, as we've seen, Susan Waldman with the New York Yankees. So in this particular clip with Melanie, I just asked her about how difficult it can be sometimes to kind of be the face of a new generation when you haven't really asked to be that face of a generation, and how you embrace something like that when so many people are trying to tear you down, and yet at the same time, young girls are looking up to her to potentially say, hey, maybe this is an opportunity for me one day that I can do it. And she had a great answer. Here's what Melanie Newman in her own words.
You think about that constantly, because in the back of your head, it's like, okay, well, if I mess up a call, or if I do something wrong, it's magnified 10 times more than what it would be for a man. And then you take it a step further and you think, if I mess up badly enough, that changes somebody's opinion on how women as a whole, like one entire gender, and their ability to do a job, which just isn't true. And I mean, there are so many qualified, talented women, some who are much better than I am at this. And you really just try to block it out of your brain sometimes. And of course, once we're in a game setting, I have really good broadcast partners, and it doesn't come into my head a lot, but it's the quiet moments, especially when you see the headlines, or someone somehow finds a way to break through the million filters on any of my social media or my emails. And they choose to voice some not kind words. But you have to lean on your inner circle and keep going and having their support.
So there's Melanie Newman in her own words, and she talks about the fact that, as she said, people will make rude comments to her and, try to pick apart what she does sometimes because she is a woman. Now, we had Jessica Kleinschmidt on our show, who's actually her best friend, and we chatted about that. And Jessica is one of those more vocal people who will punch right back, and I love that about her as well. But what is your thoughts, Chad, on as we see more and more women integrating themselves into the sport and being a part of it, and kind of how we are starting to break down that fourth wall? Still a lot of work to do, but obviously there are still some people out there that feel like it's 1935 and it's not going to change. We still have work to do, but it's still nice to see that we are progressing in the right direction.
I don't even think, I think, as you said, long way to go. And I don't even think it has to be 1935. It could be 1985. I'm rewatching the Sopranos series just for the fun of it. And good God, that's dated in the views and the thinking and the things that they attract. And that was, after the turn of the century. Right. And so, Twitter lights up the times that Beth has done play-by-play on the Marquee Network in place of Boog. And I think there's a segment of people that when they think of a broadcaster, it has a certain sound. And I think you've seen it whenever women are doing football, when they're doing basketball. I think you're never going to change some people's mind. And I think that is generational. And I think it's not a personal taste. It's how it is. And it's a sad state in a lot of cases. I don't think we're going to be able to make a lot of changes. It's kind of like debating politics on Facebook. You're not going to change any minds. Nobody's mind's ever been made up. But I think the younger generation is going to embrace it more. I loved, this is kind of completely off topic, but, Nickelodeon doing the Bears game last year. New faces, new ways. Old folks hated that. And when I say old folks, anybody over 40 hated that. I loved it. I thought it was amazing.
I thought it was great. I liked it.
Change is different, and it's jarring for people. And I think, as she said, she makes a mistake. She's the stupid girl on Twitter. A guy makes a mistake, it just gets to go away. I mean, how many mistakes does A-Rod make? How many times? I can't even remember who it was, but the ESPN broadcast. Who was the guy that you really wanted to take the play-by-play role? Vazurkin. So he kept calling a Cubs player by the wrong name. He kept calling Zach Davies like Kyle Davies. Did it like 3 times. I looked on Twitter. I'm like, nope, nobody really cares. But it would have been different if Beth had done that. So it is a higher bar they have to attain. And I think the more you see, just here's my view on broadcasting and play-by-play and sideline reporting. The best should rise to the occasion. And the best that, as deemed by what people like to watch in terms of the talent, is going to rise to the occasion. We've seen more and more of that at ESPN. When you and I grew up watching SportsCenter, that was a boys' club. And now it's very, very diverse, and it's fantastic. It's better for it. And so good on you in getting the interview. I enjoyed hearing it. And so the edited clip was embedded in the show. This week, we're going to be sharing the entire unedited interview as we do. As we always drop 2 podcasts each week. But good on you, Ryan, for getting that interview. I thought it was great.
Thank you, Chad. Yeah, no, she was terrific. I have no doubt we're going to hear a lot more from her on a national level, and she will be doing more play-by-play. And as we mentioned, she was part of the first all-female broadcast on YouTube earlier this year. Every person in the booth was a female. Play-by-play, color.
Go back and watch that. I'm sure it's archived somewhere. I didn't watch it live because I don't watch a lot of non-Cubs games unless it's like Field of Dreams or something with the storyline. But I need to go back and watch that just to see that look and feel. But good on them. History in the making. And I think as the years go by, we're going to be talking about things like this less and less.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, so let's finish up here, Chad. 15th inning. We're previewing the show this week. What are you looking forward to as we wrap things up here on this edition of the Extra Innings Friendly Confines?
We're probably going to record on Thursday. That's typically when we're doing it. We're always trying to look kind of for off days or after a day game. But I mean, can we be talking about a 14-game losing streak? Can we be talking about 17 in sight? Because guys, I want the highest pick possible. I don't care if this team wins. I want the guys that are out there. So I hope, one, we're talking about an extended losing streak and my excitement over who the top draft picks, and then we can start making up, T-shirts for the ones that we want. But that's the one piece of it. The other piece, I think we're going to be able to talk about how Jake did in Colorado. It's still going to be fresh in our minds. And then also, what's new. And one of the kind of the quiet storylines that people are just starting to realize, I mentioned it when I was talking about Frank the Franchise. I made up that nickname, Frank the Franchise Swindell. He's out homering everybody. He's outperforming everybody, all the guys. Now, granted, Rizzo's out with COVID. Baez is out with strikeout-related overswinging muscle strain. And Bryant's only hit 1. But they played for a little bit, and they all had their big debut. But I'm interested to see as Rizzo gets back. I believe he's going to be back this week. Baez is still amidst the 10-day. And then Bryant, I really am interested to see how much of an effect, probably not this week, but as the weeks go on, really doing a judge of how much of an effect these guys have had on their team. I know White Sox fans that are not super stoked about what Kimbrel's bringing to the table just yet, and it almost probably might have hurt Kendricks's mojo. I mean, they're back into their orders kind of messed up. So those sort of things. I don't know. You always throw out such a great rundown together. I thought mine last week was pretty good. I thought a good rundown in the next one.
Very strong rundown. Yeah, you did a great job. I appreciated you taking charge on that. I
have an extra gallbladder that has allowed me to step up at times and then do one rundown a month.
The two of us combined have one gallbladder that we share. I can share, Chad, that Tommy Birch, this is a perfect guest, and you know who he is. Tommy is the Cubs beat writer for the Des Moines Register for the AAA Iowa Cubs. He's kind enough to join us this week. I think it's perfect because we can talk about the new rankings in the farm system. And not only that, as the Cubs are down 2-0 in the fifth. So here we go. Losing streak number 12 is in reach. Tommy Birch was also at, Chad, the Field of Dreams game. And I definitely want to talk to him. We talked a little bit about it in our podcast that we recorded this past week with the White Sox and the Yankees. But Tommy is going to chat about what it was like to be there. And I'm excited to get into it with him on that as well. So we're going to chat with him about that. So I'm looking forward to that part of the show as we record this coming week.
I love that, and I love the Des Moines link. A lot of these guys that we did, that got picked up, only a couple are even gonna see Iowa this year. But what I do love, and we didn't actually talk about it in this show, but the Marquee Network is now going to show all four levels of. So if you are, again, if you want to be a little bit more than a casual fan, this is a good time to tune into the Marquee Network. They're going to be showing about a dozen games at low A, single A, double A, triple A, and you can get your cheat sheet together and look at some of the names and check out who we have. And then I also, go to the Cubs app or go to Cubs.com and click on depth and prospects and get an idea beyond Amaya, beyond Braylon, beyond these guys, and start to look and see, who is coming, because this is kind of that time in 2013, 2012, where the future is not at Wrigley. It's not at Clark at Addison. It is elsewhere, fighting and scratching and clawing, or a big move here in the offseason that the Cubs front office says could be a John Lester sort of guy, or some of these good trades that they did back in the day.
And great broadcasters, too. We mentioned Alex Cohn, who's been on our show. Elise Menaker, who's been on our show, do the Iowa Cubs. Mick Gillespie, who has also been on our show. Jody Davis doing the color with Mick Gillespie for the Double-A Tennessee Smokies. And then we mentioned the Single-A teams as well that they're going to show. So a lot of talent that you'll be able to watch on the Marquee Network as well. All right, let's bring in Aldo as we wrap things up here on the Friendly Confines, because the South Burb Hitmen follow us. Aldo, you can find him at the Ballroom Network. How'd it go, Aldo? It's good to be back. What's going on?
I'm glad to have you back. I really missed your show. You guys fill me in with all the Cubs content I need in order to, avoid that section of the newspaper.
Aldo, really quick, I wanted to ask you, because you showed a promo for Mike North. Of course, we have the Mike North Advantage here on the Barroom Network that you can listen to and download where podcasts are available. Mike has been talking for a long time about this movie about his life. You would know better than anybody. Are they going to make a movie about Mike that's going into the theaters, or is going to be on like Netflix or something? What's the latest on that?
The latest is that he is working with a gentleman who has a feature film career. He's made several Hollywood features, and they are still in script development. They're tightening up the script. It's going through rewrites, and then they're going to shop it around for some investors. And the feeling is, among some Hollywood insiders, is that it's not going to be a problem to get investors. The challenge is going to be, are you going to get $30 to $40 to $50 million, which could attract some name talent behind the picture. So the key is to have a great script, and Mike's had a great life, so a great script shouldn't be hard to do. Look at that great-looking dog!
It's Peyton, the intern joining us very quickly.
Ryan, it's intern Peyton making his debut.
I love it. She doesn't look too happy about being on the show.
Peyton is named after the greatest running back in NFL history.
It's always good to see intern Peyton.
I was going to say, what clever marketing by the Chicago Cubs. They're now doing the Hall of Fame for the veterans players. They're now showcasing the minor leagues. Yeah. When you don't have talent for the rest of the regular season, you might as well remind people about what happened and also tease them with what's coming.
Every single, and I say this because I want new to the franchise fans to follow us, and I never want them to think I'm speaking down. I'm not. But for the people that are saying this is the worst it's ever been, I was a season ticket holder in 2011, 12, 13, and 14. They averaged 94.5 losses every one of those years. It can get worse. Look up the starting lineup for today on any of those 4 years and be excited about anybody other than Rizzo and Starlin Castro, who will never play baseball probably again with his off-the-field issues. You've got to sell the sizzle right now, and the sizzle is Wrigley Field, and now it's going to be a Hall of Fame experience. But the Ricketts have their work cut out for them, because they have kind of priced out that casual fan that wants to just show up and watch a ball game and get a dollar beer. or I'm sorry, a $7 beer, which is never going to happen again, and a dollar hot dog. They have priced themselves to the point where people have to come. Otherwise, they're going to start hemorrhaging money. So I agree. You got to sell the experience now and then build up a new fan base. But for those that think this is the worst it's ever been, talk to your grandfather. Talk to your old uncle. Talk to Aldo. It could get worse.
I've been following the Cubs, like I told Ryan the other day. I've been a fan of the Cubs since 1967. So I lived through the 69 Cubs, which they lost a 10.5 game lead that they had in September. And I've also experienced teams that won only 60 games, won a third of their games. So I've seen the highs, I've seen the lows, I've seen everything in between.
My God. Well, Aldo, thank you as always. We always love having you here on the program and producing the show for us, so we appreciate it. The Southburg Hitmen are next. Of course, they're talking White Sox, and they're having a little bit of a better season, but that doesn't matter. So,
talk to White Sox fans, Ryan. They're freaking out right now. There's a lot of freaked out White Sox.
There's nothing to freak out.
The end of the world is upon them because they've had a recent streak. No, I'm sure you tune in. You'll see.
All right, tune in.
Doom and gloom. But as I will share with you, all you White Sox fans, if you look at the Cubs' 2016 record, there was a rough streak where everybody thought the wheels were coming off. And in the last couple of weeks of the season, they lost a 4-game series to the Pittsburgh Pirates. I talked to Aldo as we were setting up. It'll be okay, guys. It'll be fine. I'm sure we have a lot of White Sox fans that stuck around to the end of the show because they think they're clicking on the White Sox, but it'll be okay.
Yeah, they're going, who are these guys? All right, that's going to wrap things up on this edition of the Friendly Confines. Find us on Twitter at the Chad Gordon, at Ryan D. Lieber. For Chad, I'm Ryan. We'll be recording this week for our podcast. We'll talk to you next week, everybody. It's good to be back. Have a good one.
Hit the ballpark, everyone.